I'm a bit of an old head when it comes to anime. By far not the oldest fan you'll find still hanging around, but pretty old. Not only can I remember watching Deke Animation's localizations of Sailor Moon on their original airings, but I can remember when anime fans everywhere were ticked off that there was this great cartoon called Bishoujo Senshi Sailor Moon in Japan, and none of the anime companies in the United States seem to be paying any attention to it. But I'm not an anime YouTuber. I watch a lot of them, but I'm more of a movies and general media YouTuber, and it's that specific division that made me want to make this video. Because while I'm seeing a lot of talk from the anime community about what's happening, I'm not hearing a lot from my fellow movie and media YouTubers. And what's happening now could have far-reaching implications, because somebody is killing the anime YouTube channels. Their weapon of choice is local copyright law, and movie and media YouTube could be next. Now, before we go much further, there are a couple of disclaimers that I need to make. First of all, I am not a lawyer. What I am, and I can't believe I'm about to actually put this on the record, is a copyright hobbyist. That is, I've done a lot of study and research, and I've worked a lot in areas adjacent to and affected by intellectual property laws, so my knowledge tends to be better than the average layperson, but I still get things wrong from time to time, and you really shouldn't take anything that I say about copyright as legal advice. It's just the word of a rando who's done a lot of reading up on the subject to try to avoid needing a lawyer himself. Also, I'm going to be going into describing concepts that some of you out there might already feel familiar with, so if you want to skip any one bit of the video, I'll be putting timestamps in the description below. We join our story in the middle of the action on November 16th of 2021. That day it was reported that the Japanese creators of the channel Fast Films faced their second trial, held at the Sendai District Court in Miyagi Prefecture. The crime was copyright violation, and the three defendants each received sentences ranging from 1.5 years in prison with 3 years suspended sentence and a fine of 500,000 yen, or about 5,000 American dollars, to 2 years in prison, 4 years suspended, and a fine of 2 million yen. You might wonder, with prison time and thousands of dollars on the line, how many movies or episodes of TV shows these three just straight uploaded to YouTube. But Fast Films was essentially a movie Cliff's Notes channel. It combined clips and still frames of movies with fast-paced narration to boil down longer movies into easily digestible 10-minute chunks. At the time of sentencing, CODA, the Organization for the Promotion of Digital Content Overseas Distribution, called the sentences appropriate, saying that the case was a major achievement in preventing the further spread of copyright infringement, and pledging to continue to clean up the illegal use of Japanese intellectual property. Just 1 month later, the story continued with Irish YouTuber Mark Fitzpatrick, better known by his channel name, Totally Not Mark. With over 500,000 subscribers, Mark was doing very well. His channel was full of anime and manga commentary, and in particular, he was very popular for his content concerning the Dragon Ball franchise. In fact, Mark is one of those YouTubers who is actually incorporated and has employees to help keep his channel running, making him not just some guy operating from a computer out of his bedroom, but somebody who had successfully turned his channel into a functional company. One night in December of 2021, Mark received notification that Toei Animation, owners not just of Dragon Ball but also Saint Seiya, Sailor Moon, Digimon, and One Piece, to name just a few, had filed copyright complaints against 2 of his videos. This happens to YouTubers on a fairly regular basis. Usually it winds up getting resolved quickly, although it can be annoying for a YouTuber to have to answer each claim individually. But after just a few minutes, Mark saw the number rise to 15. And the following morning, when he woke up, Toei had filed claims against 150 videos. For Mark, that represents around 3 years of work that had been taken down virtually overnight. Mark tried to claim fair use, and that's where he ran up against a major snag. Toei was specifically claiming his videos as copyright violation within the jurisdiction of Japan. And Japan has very different ideas about intellectual property. With the online anime fandom picking up the story, YouTube responded by putting forth a new policy, or, according to their statements, enforcing an already existing policy that was rarely used, that would allow companies complaining about copyright violation to geo-block certain regions for a video where it might violate local copyright law, while allowing it to remain up in regions where it was allowed by the local laws. Done and dusted, right? Well, no. According to Mark, a source at YouTube had revealed to him that Toei had been after his videos long before the copyright claims were filed. They had previously approached YouTube and asked them not just to block the videos from being seen, but to delete them outright and terminate his channel. It was only once YouTube asked Toei to provide evidence to justify removing the channel that Toei took the drastic step of using YouTube's automated copyright claim system to individually claim each of the 150 videos. Before YouTube offered Toei the chance to geo-block videos from Japanese audiences, Toei had offered a negotiated complaint that whittled the number of videos they wanted deleted down from 150 to 86. What at first seemed like one organization, CODA, going after local YouTubers in a local court, was now 2 cases of a Japanese studio filing complaints, with one of them being against a YouTuber who does not live in Japan and is not within Japanese jurisdiction. And now we come to Suede. Suede is a YouTuber out of New Zealand. He's been making anime parodies for 8 years now. He's done a statement on YouTube, and you can find that video linked in the description below. With around 20,000 subscribers, Suede had a smaller channel, but one that enabled him to make a living. But without warning, 89 videos out of around 200 were taken down, and taken down without any option to counter the copyright claim. That was because the content had not been claimed under YouTube's system. Instead, YouTube had been notified that a small claims case had been filed against Suede in a Japanese court by Shogakukan Shueisha Productions, more commonly known as ShowPro, I'm very thankful for that shortened form, who owns the rights to famous franchises such as Pokemon, Hamtaro, Inuyasha, Doraemon, and Ranma 1/2, just to name a few. Because there was a court case involved, YouTube had simply blocked the videos worldwide and marked them as copyright claims. As they informed Suede, if the case was decided in his favor, they would restore the videos to his channel. If, however, the case resulted in copyright violation being verified, they would become copyright strikes, and under YouTube's guidelines, his channel would be deleted in its entirety. And what a lawsuit it is that they've hit Suede with. The charges are based on the number of views that he's had in Japan, not the number of videos available. So even if YouTube offered ShowPro the opportunity to geo-block the videos, it wouldn't make the lawsuit go away, because the videos have already been viewed. They're seeking 80,200 yen, or around $700 US, which may seem like a not intolerable sum, and by paying it, Suede might avoid having a warrant out for his arrest if he ever visits Japan, but it would be seen as an admission of fault, and his channel would still be taken down for copyright strikes. And if he fails to either pay or challenge the case within 3 months of its filing, then the case gets decided in favor of ShowPro in the absence of a defense, and his channel gets taken down for copyright strikes. His only other option would be to hire a lawyer in Japan for significantly more than the amount the company is seeking and fight a potentially losing battle. It's a classic slap lawsuit designed to make the time, effort, and cost of fighting a legal charge too great so that the person facing it feels it's better just to give up. This is one of those topics that people in general feel they know enough about that they might not want it explained to them, but at the heart of the matter is that Japan doesn't recognize fair use as a legal concept. So let's take a moment to talk about what fair use is, why it works, and why Japanese courts and companies don't care. If you're already familiar with all of this, feel free to use the time codes in the description to jump to the next section. Fair use is a legal exception to the control of copyright. Copyright, at its bare bones, being literally the right to decide if something can be copied, fair use carves out a space where others can make use of a copyrighted work without the permission of or a license from the copyright holder. It's a term and a doctrine that originates in America, building off of the original British legal notions of fair abridgment and fair dealing. Generally speaking, it means that a copyrighted work can be quoted from even at length, as long as the use of the work falls under a specific set of purposes, among them archiving, education, commentary, criticism, parody, and scholarship. Where fair use is recognized, its usefulness as a defense hinges on the idea of advancing knowledge or the arts by the addition of something new. Fair use is the doctrine that enables film critics to use clips from movies in their reviews. It allows scholars to quote literary works in their own texts, and it allows song parodists to craft their own lyrics for existing, familiar songs. Actually, put a pin in that last one. We might have to cycle back to it in another video sometime, because nothing in copyright is ever cut and dry. Fair use is a popular concept, and the U.S. doctrine has been influential worldwide, but it's not universal. In Israel, U.S.-style fair use has been in place legally since 2007. Malaysia adopted it in 2012. Poland's fair use doctrine holds that the defense is more likely to be found valid in cases where the use is private rather than public. South Korea has fair use similar to the U.S., and Singapore since 2004 has had fair dealing by name, but in a style very similar to fair use. Meanwhile, Australia, Canada, India, New Zealand, South Africa, and the United Kingdom have doctrines of fair dealing when it comes to copyright, which tends to be similar to fair use, but with much stricter guidelines for what kind of use is permitted under the law. And there's where we hit the problem with Japanese media and fair use. Japan does not have a public legal doctrine of fair use or fair dealing. there are very limited provisions for parody and private use, and schools, libraries, and archives have a right to reproduce work for preservation and study, and news organizations have quotation rights for current events as long as the quotations are cited. But any public or for-profit use of copyrighted material cannot be defended under fair use. In fact, Japan's copyright law lays out what are called moral rights, and among those moral rights is the right to preserve the integrity of the author's work and its title against any distortion, mutilation, or other modification against the author's will. You have then very different understandings of what is permissible behavior, and caught in the middle are people who acted in good faith under one set of legal precedents, only to find that another set of legal precedents will see them driven out of business. It might sound hyperbolic when Swade says that any anime YouTube channel could be closed down at any time under what he has dubbed the Shopro Gambit. But it's really not. Commentary and critique tend to lean heavily on referencing materials that are being talked about, especially in visual media and on a platform like YouTube, where keeping the viewer's attention is crucial. If Shopro's slap suit succeeds, they set a precedent in Japanese courts that can be used to copyright strike almost any channel that deals in Japanese media out of existence. Geo-blocking is a decent solution. If creators use geo-blocking to keep their content out of Japan in the first place, then they can't be charged in Japanese courts. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't offer geo-blocking to the vast majority of its creators. Instead, geo-blocking is a feature that is restricted to only the largest and most successful channels and networks. I think that the reason this discussion has largely stayed in the anime community is that it's often thought of as a sector of the entertainment industry that is removed from the mainstream. It does big numbers. There's a lot of money in anime, but it's not real movies like ones that star Leonardo DiCaprio and are directed by Christopher Nolan and get Oscar awards. It's an enthusiast niche. You know, like Marvel movies and Star Wars and 90% of what movie YouTube is built on. I want to acknowledge first that there's a lot of topics within anime that are more than appropriate to discuss in a mainstream movie channel. There's the significant impact of Akira on American science fiction. There's the close ties between anime science fiction and Star Trek ever since the days of The Next Generation. There's the impact of Studio Ghibli on American storytelling. And there's the fact that one of the largest media franchises in the world is Doraemon, which has at least 40 feature films and was virtually unseen in the United States until Netflix recently added 2 of the films to their streaming service. But this extends beyond anime and manga. What happens in these cases can affect all media arising from Japan. Imagine a world in which classic cinema nerds have to decide between the barest surface discussion of Akira Kurosawa's work or just ignoring him completely. Or similarly, imagine cult movie enthusiasts wanting to talk about Takashi Miike, but not being able to show any clips from Dead or Alive or Audition as part of their discussion of his style. People who critique, who parody, who review, who educate, suddenly it becomes a lot more difficult to discuss these topics. And for many, it becomes much easier just to ignore them entirely. Imagine a world in which every video about movies and television is just a talking head looking into the camera. What? What? Why are you looking at me right now? I use clips. I just haven't in this video. The world of media discussion on YouTube would be very different, and in fact, could realistically be very different overnight. Any channel that has ever used clips from Japanese media could suddenly be in danger of being shut down depending on the number of videos they've done on the subject. Not just anime YouTube. Everyone. Now, think about how many markets in the world do not have fair use. The range of fair use is limited. Imagine if just a handful of UK producers decided to start pursuing charges against every YouTuber who had used their media in a way that fell under fair use, but outside of the UK's standards for fair dealing. The number of countries that recognize fair use is relatively small, as is the number that recognize the narrower definitions of fair dealing. Every country outside of these markets suddenly becomes a potential problem when it comes to discussing media and the arts if they are able to file slap lawsuits against foreign entities that can have their entire channel shut down. For now, geo-blocking would be an effective stopgap measure, but YouTube hasn't given that ability to all of its creators. In order to exercise that ability, you either have to be a massive content creator on the platform. We're talking Paramount Pictures official YouTube channel massive, or you have to be a member of a large YouTube network. In the wake of what's happening with Suede, people are supporting the push for all YouTubers to be given that ability with the hashtag #GeoBlockingForAll. Also, awareness is being drawn to the case with the hashtag #ShowProGambit. But we need more than just geo-blocking. The international culture of internet criticism, commentary, and parody, for better or for worse, has been built on a very American idea that they represent legitimate uses of copyrighted work. And it's now becoming clear that we're going to need some concerted effort to see those rights recognized internationally if small and startup creators are going to be able to thrive. This is more than just an anime YouTube issue. It's an issue for anybody who relies on fair use for the right to discuss the things that they want to discuss. This is something that we need to be talking about, and so thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to listen to me talk about it. Whether you're a long-time subscriber or you're brand new, I'm happy you're here and I love you. Spread the word about this issue and drop down into the comments below to let me know your favorite creator who might be in trouble if fair use stops being an effective defense. It doesn't have to be me, but that would be a nice ego boost. Also, hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. Those buttons are always in need of some love, and consider sharing this video because sharing is caring. Thank you to our patrons, whose names are appearing on the screen now. If you're in a position to help the channel financially, the Patreon and Ko-fi links are available in the description, as well as affiliate links to Bookshop with some relevant reading. If you're not in that position currently, thank you for being here, and I hope to see you again soon. Until next time, watch like it means something.